sir. Just take as long as you need. No worries, mate.
Two Chats recording started. This is the NWC Show. My name's Barry, and this is episode 15. We're joined with Jonesy. So, do you want to introduce yourself, Jonesy?
Hi, good morning, Barry. Yeah, I'm George, also known as Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Yeah, just on YouTube, quite new to YouTube, and really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm running your channel. I got you on Rated R. It was a live stream, and then I've just been watching your shows ever since then. And I was like, I need to get this guy on because it just seems like it would be a cool chat.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
So, first question we always kick these off with is, what got you into wrestling? What's the thing that kind of got you into wrestling?
Yeah, behind me kind of got me into it. When I was I was probably 6 years old back in 1991. I went to a friend's house and they had like a WWF VHS. It was this one actually, and started watching it. I'd never seen wrestling before, and by the time they kind of got to the Demolition Heart Foundation match, which was for the tag team titles, I was just gripped, man. There was loads of stuff on the show that just seemed crazy for a 6-year-old. Like prime example, the Ultimate Warrior, Honky Tonk Man. I'd never seen anything like the Ultimate Warrior. And when I looked at it, there was an angle with the Honky Tonk Man, and kind of the Warrior beforehand. There was a massive build-up, and it showed like a video clip of Bruce the Bar Beefcake. He was meant to be facing Honky Tonk Man in this match, but there was a part where the Outlaw Ron Bass, he kind of put a spur against his neck, and it was just really, really gory for a 6-year-old. I just thought, this is crazy, man. This is violence, but it's legal. How can that be, really? I really enjoyed it. I loved it, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, man, something quite similar for me. So I was born in 1991, so it was like a little bit later. So like to 1996, 1997, I was in my mum's friend's house and she had something on playing. I think it was a VHS, but it was wrestling. I don't remember what it was. I just remember sitting down, standing, just staring at this whole show. My mum had to like take me away, got figures. Then it was like that Attitude era, 97, 99, 98, 99, that kind of era. I was just right in it. I just couldn't get enough of it every weekend. I remember watching it, and it was just, ever since then, it's been something that I watched pretty much religiously.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's good. It's good. It's amazing. Like when you look at it, sort of how long the longevity of it, and you look at the history of it. I remember with me personally that obviously I saw the VHS. We didn't have Sky at home, so it was kind of a case of going to the video shop and hope they had like a new release. And then obviously we got the Hasbro figures that came out. I remember somebody had at school the Legion of Doom figures, and I was just mesmerized by these figures. I could not believe how good they looked. And obviously started getting Hasbros, and it was just good, man. I tried to get everything I could get my hands on because we didn't have Sky. I tried to get any footage I could get. But yeah, it was amazing. I just couldn't believe how great these figures were and how great the product was, really.
Yeah, I know. I think I always keep saying there's people that don't realise how lucky they are now because obviously the WWE Network, YouTube, online, you can pretty much
I wish we had that. I
Yeah.
really wish we had that back in the 90s. In all honesty, I think if you were lucky, you'd have Sky, and then you'd get the odd broadcast of WCW on ITV. Like all I used to have was we used to have like obviously terrestrial TV, which was kind of 5 channels back then. And it would be WCW like 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday. You set your VHS tape, hoping it records, and if it doesn't record, you're gutted then. And it's just yeah, it's just really weird to go back and look at it. Really,
When you look at it, you're like, how did we even survive with like barely? Like, what did we watch? And then also, what really got me into WCW is when it was on Channel 5, like on a Saturday, like the Nitro before or 2 weeks before was on the Saturday, and I remember just falling in love with Sting, Goldberg, Hogan. Like when you're a kid and you see these just insanely like colourful, bright, massive looking wrestlers, you're like, I need to watch this, and that just became like another part of my Saturday night was to watch WCW. But yeah, when I look at it now, I'm like, it's insane that my kids get to enjoy wrestling whenever they want. For me, it was like you had to wait for it, get the VHS. Your mum had to allow you to watch it, and it was such a hassle back then.
I think the thing as well that's different back then is even like when I used to go to my granddad's. Like my granddad, obviously, he used to have Sky, and it used to be very rare in the summer. I'd go there for the summer holidays, and you'd wait a week. Raw wasn't on a Monday night. You'd wait till Friday, and I wouldn't dream of going on the internet looking at spoilers and stuff. I'd just be so excited on a Friday night for Raw coming on, and yeah, it's just really kind of iconic looking back at that. And sort of at the time, I was just I always used to buy WF magazine all the time. It was kind of months out with the results. But I remember, I think it was like 96 or 97, I found Power Slam magazine, and it just opened my eyes, really. It was a bit like the Wrestling Observer, but then it was so sort of in depth of what's going to happen and stuff, and I was just kind of amazed by it, really.
Yeah, man, the magazines were insane back even the early 2000 period as well. You had so many wrestling magazines. That's how it got me into TNA, because I didn't really. But you know what it was like back when you were a kid. It was what your mum was willing to pay. Sky and stuff like that wasn't really there. Internet, even still at that point, wasn't the best in the UK. Like, it was still that dial-up connections and stuff like that. So you just kind of relied on those magazines. When I discovered like TNA, the one that always sticks in my head is getting the WWF one. And it was No Way Out 2000. Was like they used to put the screenshots in it, or the picture.
Yeah.
I remember opening it and just seeing that scene from like Cactus Jack going through the cell, just lying in that big hole, and that was it. I was like, we need to get Sky, we need to get NTL or something, because I need to watch this more often.
Yeah, I think the thing with it was really, really iconic as a child. I remember now was obviously Channel 4 got the Royal Rumble 2000. And I remember the Sunday they announced that, it was like all my Christmas came at once. I was so excited, man. I could not believe that we're going to get a pay-per-view on terrestrial TV. And then I think the end of it obviously was the invasion. The fact we got the invasion, where I kind of moved where I live now. I was 16 years old when I moved out, and kind of to have the invasion as kind of my first pay-per-view in my own home, I thought that was kind of pretty iconic, really. It was just an amazing time, really, to be able to go out and watch wrestling and see it on TV. Like, even seeing just Sunday night for an hour, I'll take that over not being able to see WWF, really, because we've never seen it on UK TV before that, like terrestrial TV anyway.
Definitely being able to get, like, I don't really remember that Channel 4 period, because I was like 9, I think I was. But then, like, years later, I remember like my mum saying like, "Oh, it'll be on too late," or "You can't stay up to watch that." And then years later, I always remember kicking myself. Like, if I just stayed up that little bit longer, I would have been able to enjoy like a great pay-per-view. But the other question we normally ask is, what is something that you love about wrestling, today's product? So what's something that you love about today's kind of product?
I love the variety. I think the thing with it is we're in a really good place now. For once, we've got somebody that can challenge WWE, AEW. I really like the nostalgia part of that. They're on TNT, which is a bit like WCW. They're making signings, aggressive signings in the market to make them competitive. And the thing with WWE is you've got NXT. You don't have to stick with just WWE. What I do love about it probably is the athleticism, the risk in ring. It's amazing. And just to build characters, I really think they do a good job of building people such as Roman Reigns. Like, sort of, if we look at it probably a year ago, Roman Reigns was jobbing to Baron Corbin, basically. He wasn't really as relevant as he is now, and to see him come back, go through everything he's gone through, and now he's the most over thing in wrestling. I think it's amazing just to see that turnaround, see them, how they slowly build up wrestlers. To see with my podcast and stuff, I like to look and see, this is where I think they're going, this is how they're going to get there, and is it going to work? Crucially, that's kind of what I sort of look to do, really.
Yeah, definitely, man. If nobody at this point hasn't checked out your podcast, you should definitely go get it, because
Thank you.
You and the ones with SCW Steve as well, when you are going really in depth on like the kind of weekly shows, is just amazing. I've learned a lot from it as well. But
thank you very much.
Like you said, that's the same for me. Just how much wrestling it is and how far it's came. So from when we were younger, obviously it was more eye catching, as by like the look, like the way people look. They just look like these big, huge, scary looking guys.
Yeah, no, of course.
Then
I think what I think I've also started doing now is, ever since I'm at the age now where I'm able to kind of tape trade and buy stuff, and I've gone out and got like stuff like United States Wrestling Association, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. This is all stuff that I would never have been able to see in this country, and I think going back and looking at it, it's just quite funny to see American sort of indie wrestling and just see how it compares to kind of now, going back looking at stuff from 95, 96, 97. It's just fun. I've been watching a lot of Memphis Power Pro Wrestling, and what it was is, this is going back to kind of 98, and this was a territory that was a feeder for WWF. So you get people such as Kurt Angle coming through, you get people such as Albert, known as Baldo then, Prince Albert, and other people. It's just so much fun to see sort of WWF have a feeder territory, and just see that sort of, you get the corny adverts and everything else, but I just think it makes me feel really kind of nostalgic looking back at it, really.
Yeah, man, I love going back and checking out those kind of the independent, like, small promotions that you wouldn't have seen back then. Going back and looking at them, and you can kind of see how the wrestling, how it has evolved, but like how the kind of stuff that we're doing today starts on those independent stuff. When those guys get bigger, it starts to just build up, which I just think it's so cool. Like you said, you go back and you see people like even Jericho, go back and look at his run in Smoky Mountain, and it's like you can see the things that he does through his whole career just kind of starting at that point. And I'm like, it's insane just to kind of, the nostalgia's amazing, but then it's kind of insane to see how career development happens as well.
It's just amazing to see these wrestlers that are so relevant now, and you see them back then in front of, I don't know, 20 or 30 fans, and this is on some really, really random channel in America where there's just all these adverts selling you stuff like home insurance and stuff. It's just kind of fun, really. I just think it's one of them things. As obviously where we were in the country, we never had access. When I was at school, I never had access to probably ECW and all the other type of promotions. I'd say ECW is probably slightly bigger, but particularly the independent American ones, it's just it's pretty endless. The problem is I'm getting to that point now where I've got so much wrestling. I just don't have time to watch it with work and the current product, unfortunately. But I do try and set myself probably one evening a week just to go back and sort of gorge on some retro wrestling, definitely.
Yeah, man, I do the same. Maybe I'm doing like on the channel, it's like a watch along of like the original, from the very start of Raw and the very start of Nitro, which if you've ever watched Raw 1993, the first question you'll ask is why are you doing a watch along for it? Because some of it is so bad. Like you get guys.
I've seen your videos. They're really, really good. I think it's hard. I think the thing is you've got a lot of wrestlers there where because they've not really got any competition. WCW wasn't head to head on a Monday night with them. It does get better. I've done a similar kind of watch along, but it's one of them things. Just trying to sort of what I try and do. I try and forget what happens. Like going forward, you know that you probably know where the storyline's going. So you just try and forget. But when you see these jobbers on TV, and obviously you've still got the whole joy of probably Waylon Mercy, who them type of wrestlers come along as well. It's just getting there. Once you get to probably 96, it gets a bit more risque, but then it's just one of the things. I think the thing is it's watchable. The shows are probably 45 minutes long, whereas when you go further forward, it can be like 2 hours maybe sort of onwards and stuff. But that's a great period to review, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool to go back and watch, especially like when you've got somebody like Mr. Perfect that was going up against Bobby Who, and it's like that's like having Roman Reigns going up against somebody that nobody has ever seen before that looks terrible. They look like they're just like just out of shape and they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like the '96 period, I go back and watch that kind of personally. Like I normally pick 1 or 2 nights to go back and watch something. But like when I'm at that point '93, when it's just there's nobody, you've just got like the big guys against like nobody. I know it picks up when like you've got Luger, Bret Hart, Taker, they start appearing more. But I'm just in that kind of sweet, kind of boring period of it. But the WCW Nitro one, I think there's been one bad Nitro since I started it, and it's just because they have so many good guys against each other. So they have like we have Ric Flair and Sting tying up pretty much nearly every other week. You've got Arn Anderson coming to the end of his career, but he still looks good. Sabu, like just a ton of good guys at that point. Just
you got a load of fun stuff on that product. The thing is with WCW when it first launched, it launched with such an impact with Lex Luger debuting. It was such a shock to the industry and stuff. So I think it's they're gonna go better and better and better with WCW. It gets really, really kind of good. You've still obviously got the outsiders to come in as well. That's a massive change to the industry. But I still put the question out there to you, Barry. I don't want to change the subject to a tangent totally, but the fact that WCW were able to sign Bret Hart and various other people and be in this position above WWE, and the fact that they didn't survive it just shocks me now. Looking back at it, if they would have made certain decisions like keep Stone Cold Steve Austin, he got released by WCW, that could have been, we wouldn't have Stone Cold. Maybe WF wouldn't have survived, basically. It's just interesting, them decisions they made. I'm sure they regret it now, probably sometimes.
Yeah, man, I remember, so there was a period in time when I was moving house with my mum and I didn't get internet or nothing like that, but I was a big WCW guy just because here in the UK, it was easy to get WCW figures, easy to get WCW VHSs, posters, T-shirts. It was everywhere here for some reason. But I just remember being like, oh, I'll go to the library before I leave. Like, what kind of one last time, go down, check out the internet. I typed in WCW to go see what was happening. And it was like, no longer in business. And I was like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah, no, it's a shock.
Then it was like this whole big thing. I was like, we're going to get, as a kid, I'm like, we're going to get like Sting against Taker, Hogan against Austin, like just all these Goldberg against Austin, all these kind of fantasy things didn't really pan out. But like you just says, I don't know how somebody can have like Hogan, Savage, like the show we watched last night over on Rated Darwin, like literally the whole pay-per-view is just stacked with great wrestlers. Even the lower card guys are still great wrestlers, and I don't know how they managed to fumble that ball.
I really don't know. The only thing I can say is look at it. Look, the way that they stacked wrestlers, they obviously went to ECW before WF and got all the wrestlers that were decent. The fact that they sort of disused them or deused them probably meant the wrestlers left and got angry. But it just shocks me when we look at what WF was serving. Like WF at kind of a similar time period would just gimmicks like TL Hopper and this lot, and it's just crazy that the fact that the transition of people such as The Rock, Stone Cold, and probably the Mike Tyson signing ultimately helped WWF. I think the fact they went to that risque product, I think it was a clever move by WWF, because I remember I've always been a WWF guy instead of WCW. Although we could see WCW in the country, I agree, we was able to see it a lot easier. As you said, it was on TNT on a Friday night. You'd have that, you'd have Thunder, you could catch the replay of Raw. It was a great Friday night every Friday being a teenager, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm just one of those people that love wrestling. Like, if you want to say to pick WWF, WCW, WWF, whoever, even today, are you going to pick NXT or AEW? That's how I just put the both of them together for my review, because I wouldn't want to pick one over the other every week, because I just like watching wrestling.
I think both products have really good qualities, and it's just good. I think you shouldn't limit yourself to one, and I think we're just really, really lucky in 2021 to be able to have so much choice of wrestling. And with the talk of NWA Power, I don't know if you've seen that. That's hopefully going to be coming back soon. We're just going to have a lot of wrestling to choose. I'm really in a good place with watching wrestling. I'm really enjoying it.
Definitely, man. And another thing is, what's something that you dislike about today's product? What's something that you don't like about it?
Yeah, I've got two things with this. So I'd say probably rematches. I'm not a fan of just rematches every week, the same match again and again, unless it's got a storyline and there's a reason to it. And the other thing would probably be the lack of storylines. Like, I think I'm one of them where I grew up in the Attitude Era. I'm always looking for the next heel turn, the next babyface turn. I'm always looking at a reason why someone's doing something. I don't want to just see two wrestlers out there in the ring. And I think for me, I don't know whether it's just me personally, but looking at just WWE generally, there's a real shortage of stables, I think. Although we've got the Hurt Business, we've got Retribution, we don't ever seem to have a stable equivalent to an NWO or D-Generation X to me. I think that's a real thing that's missing in WWE, besides managers as well. I think we're really lacking managers as well.
Man, I totally agree. The stable-wise in WWE is terrible. Like, the ones that we do have, Hurt Business is good. I like them, but for a long time, I just couldn't buy into them. But the Retribution just is a joke. Like, the way they've used it, the way they've made them lose every week, it's just insane. Like, I would always try and recreate that NWO. I would probably say Evolution. Then you've got like a Nexus. Those kind of ones done it, but they really struggle in 2021. I think it's because they can't do that risky kind of stuff. They don't know how to play it. They don't want to have too many bad guys in the same thing, or something like that. Well, the Undisputed Era kind of done it as well, so I don't know how they can get it in the main roster to work.
I think the problem with it is, as I said, they've obviously got a 2 hour show if you take away the adverts on Raw every week, and the problem with it is they just change their mind all the time. Prime example with Retribution, when they debuted, there's 20 of them, and they're doing stuff like ripping up the arena, like tearing the building apart, attacking fans and stuff. That was really cool and really relevant. You've got a real question mark of who are they, which is great, which I like the question mark. It's more a case of when we get the answer, and when the payoff isn't no relevance of that. When 20 people go down to 5 all of a sudden, I just think it's I just hate that. For me, the same with the hacker gimmick they were doing, where they didn't pay that off. It's just small things like that really make me question why am I investing so much time. But I'm going to keep watching the product because I'm always believing that it's going to come back good. I wouldn't give it up because I'll be one of them things. If I did give it up and I do realise, it's come back really, really good, I'd kick myself. So I've got nothing better to do, so I'm going to keep watching, definitely.
Yeah, man, I'm the same. I'm always like, next week it might get better. The next week it might get better. And you don't want to give it up because back in the Attitude Era, the WWF was terrible for a long period of time. Yeah. And then it became Austin, Rock, Triple H, Taker, Kane, like this insane roster. I'm kind of hoping for that to some way come back around. But like you were saying about storylines as well, when we grew up, storylines were sometimes 2-3 years long. Like, they would have other mini feuds during it, but this big feud was always building up somewhere. But then, like, now it's kind of month to month. Like you were saying, they drop stuff every now and again. The same goes for AEW. Like, they'll do something, they'll drop. It's a kind of short-term booking, which I think obviously to try and get eyes on the show might benefit them a little bit, but just literally giving us a really long-term story, which I think AEW does the best at the moment. But kind of giving us that long-term story is what wrestling fans want. It's like a movie or going to theatre. You don't want here's the first 15 minutes, story done. Here's another 15. You want to be enjoyed and want to watch it. Like you said last night, after watching Super Brawl, you want to see the Nitro after it. That's what we kind of want. We want to just see the next episode. We want to know what's be excited for it.
I think you're exactly right, mate. I think the thing with it is, I remember going back to, this is probably one of my most iconic moments in wrestling, I'd say, was if I go back to sort of the Undertaker Mankind feud, for me, I've never felt so much passion for a feud. And the fact you've got so many small intricacies that come into it, such as the Boiler Room Brawl, the victory at King of the Ring, and when you get Paul Bearer turning heel for me, when I was when I was that age, you've got to try and work out. I was about I must have been about 12 or something then. And even then, as a 12-year-old, I was still shocked. I couldn't sleep for like 3 days after because Paul Bearer turned on The Undertaker. You know what I mean? That's the drama. I know we're a lot older now and you want to suspend the disbelief, but for me, they don't really do enough of people turning. People turn and it's okay, wow, they've turned, like, great, but it needs to carry on, really. They need to then elevate it. They need to sort of have a reason to it, not just turn people with no explanation, really.
Definitely. When, like, I remember going back and watching it when we had the tagged classic DVDs, if you remember them.
Yeah, I remember tagged classics.
I remember going back and getting like loads of them with Undertaker against Mankind, because I loved the Hell in a Cell match, which was like the big playoff from it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Back and getting the kind of rest of the story was just insane. Like the Boiler Room Ball, the casket match, Buried Alive,
there was so much.
The two of them just work so well with each other, and it's so weird because they just look like two people that wouldn't work well with each other as well.
I think the thing with it that was so good about it is just the way that Mankind tested Undertaker. Like no one had tested Undertaker at that point, and the fact it then leads to Kane coming in. That's a further chapter that they can do another story on, and the story arc just keeps growing and growing and growing, which makes me excited, really. Which is what I'd like to see something similar in WWE now. I don't know if you could do as sort of risque as what they did, but at least you can you've got to really start building up. I think the one thing I would say about the current product is they struggle to build up credible contenders. So going in against Roman Reigns every single month, I've got the feeling, Roman's retaining. I don't want to have that feeling. I want to have a question mark. Roman's going to lose this month, maybe he'll lose. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you can sort of build everybody up, but all they're doing at the moment is build up Lashley, Reigns, and McIntyre. That's all they've kind of done, really. And I think, why limit yourself to just building up 3 wrestlers? You should have 5 or 6 wrestlers that can win the belt at any time, in my opinion.
Definitely. Like, if again, obviously we feel like old men talking about like 20 years ago, but that is the big period in wrestling. Like, you always kind of had your top 5. So you would say what Austin, Rock, Taker, Triple H, and Kurt Angle, kind of that early 2000 period. You've always got like a kind of 5, like Brock Lesnar, Batista, Cena, Orton. I've totally forgot his name. So like your top kind of 5 guys are always there. But like now, like you said, it's really Reigns, McIntyre. Like, I don't believe Daniel Bryan's going to be able to beat Roman Reigns because of how much they've put Roman over. I don't really like The Miz getting that kind of the win over Drew. I like that. I thought it was pretty cool. It was different. It got Twitter exploding, which is one of the best things about watching when wrestling does something and Twitter just starts crying about it. I love when I see that. But yeah, there's nothing really, like you say, there's nothing really to buy into at the minute in wrestling.
I think the thing with that, with The Miz, for example, if he'd been built up credible, say he won the briefcase originally in the match itself, then fine. But because he'd been booked as a jobber, he hadn't won a match since beating Otis for the briefcase. And him winning the title is fun. Ha ha ha, it's fun, yeah. But he's not going into WrestleMania probably with the belt, and he's a transitional champion. So I think this is your world title. The way I've always looked at wrestling since I've been a fan is your world title belt is like a prop. It's that much of a prop that when Bret Hart went to WCW, Vince McMahon wouldn't let him take the world title over there in case it was on television, in case it done detrimental damage to the television, detrimental damage to the belt. I think they just don't treat the belt with any respect, really. Although Roman is a great champion, I have to say that. And Drew has been a pretty credible champion until he lost it. I think he's done a good job. But we just need to get them building up somebody. Like, I think Lashley's a really good upstart. I think he's got really good potential. Probably going to be the next world champion. I'll put that out there now. We just need to sort of see somebody else in 2021 really to be able to be there. So by the time they get to SummerSlam, if Roman's still champion, this person's got a chance. Maybe that's all I'm saying about
it. Definitely, when like the Miz stuff, like I said, it was funny. I wasn't a big fan of it. I was like, it's okay, it's something different. But literally earlier in that night at Elimination Chamber, he gets slapped by Bad Bunny. It's like, if he's going to win it, make him like look good that night or something. Like, just do something. I think it might just be that. Like, back in the day, the writers and stuff like that was a lot less. The writing team was a lot kind of smaller. Then now it's obviously a big corporate entity. It's pretty much Disney for wrestling is what WWE is. And sometimes it can just be too big. They have too many things going that they forget what they were doing. And I think that's the kind of refresh of air coming into wrestling with AEW is, even though they're not doing everything 100% correctly, like they're not the best wrestling promotion, they're not on par with like early WCW yet, but they can get there. But I just think it just kind of breath of fresh air, like keeps everything kind of more feels more fun when you're watching an AEW show as well. And partly because it does still look like that kind of WCW grey ring, brings back that nostalgia feel.
Yeah, definitely. I think you make some excellent points. I think the thing with AEW is they got Tony Khan. Tony Khan's a fan, and that's the thing. He's an actual fan. And when you look at this, it's not about WWE versus AEW, but they're doing some fantastic matches, such as exploding barbed wire board matches. That's crazy. WWF would never do anything like that. I'm not saying that you always have to go for gore and shock and stuff like that, but when you've got Kenny Omega signed, they've done a great job with John Moxley. Obviously, Dean Ambrose, WWF didn't really use him, right, in my opinion. And they're just continuing adding wrestlers. And I think the fact is, if they can get competitive, what I'd love to see, is probably never going to happen. I'd love to see AEW move to Monday nights, really, and then you're really going to put pressure on WWE to then up Raw. Raw needs to really have some competition. That's why I think it's very filler. Although last week's episode, I did think it was quite good last week, which was change.
I love when you do get an episode like last week's Raw. It was enjoyable. Like, it was a little bit more enjoyable than the other ones, and then you start thinking, is this just more enjoyable? Is it still bad and it's more enjoyable than all the other bad ones that we've got? You never really know if it's actually good or if it's just they've not really had a really enjoyable one for a long time. But like you said, I would love to see AEW come to that Monday spot or even the Friday spot to try and take on SmackDown. We could have just a Friday night, two great wrestling shows. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, definitely.
That would be amazing. But the barbed wire stuff, I'm not 100% sure how it's going to work out in AEW. Obviously, it's something that the American audience wouldn't have seen as much if you've not watched that kind of Japanese stuff. But I hope it's going to play out well. I love how they use Ambrose Moxley at the minute. I'm loving how his kind of character plays it. Just, I feel that there's something missing from it. Like, when he's got the belt, I'm not really buying into it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is. I'm not a person that's going to be writing wrestling or anything anytime soon. But I don't know what it is. I'm like, I just can't buy into his character. And the only thing with AEW is when I was watching my fiance the other day, when Kenta came in, she was just like, "Who's this?" Like, yeah. She doesn't know he was in NXT. He's like this Japanese guy. He's a great wrestler. She doesn't really know, doesn't really care. It's just like, you want to just get that kind of casual fan. I know they're building for the future. Everybody keeps telling me that, but like, they still need to think about now. With signings like Big Show, Sting, you're going to get us to watch it, but then there's nobody really Miro, Rusev, he's still kind of newer. There's nobody really that could to join the Attitude Era. To kind of the modern.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. I think the thing with it is obviously them going out, it's almost like a TNA or an Impact Wrestling sort of point of view, going out, getting Big Show, going out, getting Sting. The problem is WWE's top wrestlers probably aren't attainable at the moment. They've not been able to follow up the John Moxley signing, in my opinion. They've not been able to go out and get somebody at that level that's in WWE, vice versa. What I'd be interested to see what happens is like back in the 90s where we had wrestlers switching from WCW to WWE and vice versa at any time. I'm interested to see once contracts start running down, once people start sort of not liking where the direction of the character is, whether we get more people coming to AEW or vice versa. So I definitely can see, probably, this is a prediction out there, probably I reckon within the next maybe 5 or 10 years, I think we'll get MJF in WWE. I think he's a WWE guy. I think he's got that charisma. For me, he's like a young Roddy Piper. And I think that what it will come down to is WWE have got that much money from Peacock now. They should be able to go out and get who they want as other contracts, then the wrestlers want to come, really.
Definitely. I think MJF looks like a WWE guy. It looks like he'd be put him in that NXT position, get him up to that Monday Night Raw position. You could see people wanting to tune in to watch him. He's a great on the mic, good in the ring. He's probably going to be the next big thing unless he messes it up, which you've seen quite a lot over the past 10 years. Like, this guy's going to be the next big thing, then he's gone the next year. So I hope that doesn't happen.
It just depends. It's probably maybe an ambitious statement saying that he'll go there, but I just think I can't see WWE not reacting when these AEW wrestlers are going out. Like, AEW have obviously gone out and nicked Moxley from them. They've started Sting. They've signed Big Show now. I think WWE, obviously, they're continually enhancing their talent pool. As I said, this last 2 weeks, they've signed quite a few wrestlers like Taya Valkyrie from Impact Wrestling, a few British wrestlers. You know what I mean? It's one of them things where they feel threatened. So whenever in history WWE feel threatened, they go out and sort of recruit, it seems, which is it's good for us as fans. We have a lot more talent to watch, but I just hope they push people such as Ricochet better, because Ricochet, for me, he's one of the biggest travesties in WWE. So underused, really.
Definitely, man. I think the problem with WWE is what I always say is there's just too many good wrestlers. Like, back in that time, even though I was taking the piss out of it when they had those like nobody cares wrestler versus the big guy, like Perfect or Bret Hart. It'd be like having Roman Reigns versus just like somebody randomly out of the audience. But there's too many good guys now. Like somebody has to be that buried person. Somebody has to lose the match. Like there's just so many. You've got like your Nakamura's. You've got like Ricochet, Cesaro, Bryan. You can literally go down the WWE roster and be like, this guy's got like a top 10 match, top 10, top, like you can just name everyone. And I think that's a hard thing, is like, how do you book it? How do you make everybody look good but not hot? And then who gets their time? Because Roman's the biggest thing in wrestling at the minute. You don't want to try and take away from him. For me, personally, if I was to give an opinion, would be to make the belts mean more. Because who really cares what the belts are doing at the minute in WWE? They've kind of ruined them, like diluted them so much that I'm not interested who's got the belt. I'm just interested in who's the biggest character, and I would love to see them get the belts. Like back in the day, I remember Austin having the belt. Obviously, Austin's character was bigger than the belt, but then whoever had it, like when Taker had it or Rock had it, they were the face of the show.
Yeah, 100%.
But then now you're just like, who really cares who's got the belt? Because if you do give it to somebody else, Roman's still going to be the face of the show. He's still the kind of main guy.
I think the thing with it is it's really, really kind of hard. I think the thing with it is going into this period without fans. We've obviously had like last year nearly without any fans apart from the Thunderdome. I think the thing is bringing the fans back. It'll be. I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of WrestleMania this year as a gauge to see who's over and who's not really, because WWE obviously are piping in crowd noises of who they want to be over. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the reaction Roman Reigns gets, because I think he's going to get cheered when they want him to be a heel, which I think it'd be great. I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays that off, really, because I think he's fantastic. For me, he's the modern day version of The Rock. I've got that same feeling watching Roman Reigns now as I did when I used to watch The Rock and Austin back in the day. I feel exactly the same about him, really. I feel that this guy, he's a leader, he's carrying the show, and if anything happened to him, if he got injured or anything, WWE, I question where they'd go, really.
Definitely. Like, I don't see how they would book SmackDown without Roman there at the minute. Like, he really is the star of the show. Even the stuff with like Edge, all that.
Yeah,
you're watching it because of how good Roman Reigns is, and that's obviously part of how good Paul Heyman is as well. When you look at the kind of the
Paul
back
Heyman's
stuff,
incredible. He's so good. Yeah. Paul Heyman, anything he sort of turns his hand to, particularly the manager role, he's superb. He further elevates Roman, and I just really think he's great. I think he's really built since he's come over to SmackDown with Roman. I think it's for me, it's probably the one must-watch show of WWE of the week. I'd say SmackDown, because it's always generally very good.
Definitely, and I would love to see Paul Heyman work with somebody like one of the women, like Rhea Ripley or somebody like that, just to give them that extra credibility, to make them that kind of really big, just badass women wrestler that can be the champion and turn into that kind of Roman Reigns for the women's division, which I think they're lacking.
I really love that. I really think that's a good idea. I think what I'd love to see is Roman Reigns I know he's got his sort of group, but I'd love to see him get a stable other than Jey Uso and Heyman. I think there's room there. If you did add a woman, for me, I was putting it out there, we're going into WrestleMania now, I'd like to see Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks, although she's not long been a babyface, I think for me, her and Heyman, not that she probably needs someone to speak for her, I think that could be fun, really. And I think you really want to have Roman stable, have all the belts, really, like the old days. Back in the NWO, they had most of the belts, not all the time, but they did have the belts. And you're really questioning if anybody can beat this stable to get the belt back, which is it's a fun storyline, and I'd like to see something like that happen, really.
Definitely, I think that would be cool with like Sasha Banks. For Rhea Ripley's my favorite wrestler at the minute.
She's going to be so good when she comes up. I really hope that following obviously last year at WrestleMania, where she had the fantastic match with Charlotte, WWE really can't muck this up. I think with her, I think she's been booked so well in NXT. I think it'd be a real shame if they don't use her the right way, really.
Definitely. I would even go as far as I would have brought her up earlier and put her in a match with Ahsoka at Mania and let Rhea Ripley go over. Like, she deserves it. She's the kind of future of the business, and you could give her that kind of year-long run, because you know she's just going to be over anyway.
I agree. I think it's a strange thing. Obviously, following the Royal Rumble, she was so good, so dominant in the final two. But the fact they've delayed this upcoming, I don't really know why, the reason for that. But I hope that she's going to be involved in probably the Raw Women's title match. I'd hope that she's going to have some element with that. It depends if they want to do sort of Oscar Charlotte maybe at Fastlane, potentially. Then maybe Charlotte gets the belt, and then you can have Charlotte versus Rhea again at WrestleMania, which I think for me, that seems to be the natural match. I really would be a fan of them doing that, really, or a triple threat.
Definitely. I think triple threats will probably going to be for like the SmackDown one, so you'll probably get like Roman, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. For me, I would put Bryan over, give him the belt, let him have like a little last run before he leaves, and put him back against Roman. Give Roman that kind of like a different feud out with the belt, let him grow a little bit as well, and then just kind of have him beat the hell out of Brian at SummerSlam or something like that.
Sounds good.
I think that'd be the best thing to do. But you know what WWE's like. You can say this would probably work, and then they'll be like, no, we'll just do something totally different.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing is, I think if I look at it like WrestleMania, if I was going to put an early prediction out there, I think I can't see us having two sort of good guys winning. I think Lashley and Drew's probably one that's going to happen. I can see Drew winning and getting the belt there, and I think Roman will retain. Actually, I'm going to put that. I think Roman Reigns will retain at the moment. We obviously don't know who, other than Edge, who his opponent's going to be. But for me, I just don't see WWE doing two feel good stories. I think it would be interesting if they did, though. Definitely.
Yeah, it would be different, but I know what you mean. So, kind of finishing up, a couple of questions to kind of finish up. So, who's your favourite wrestler of all time? If you had to be like one person is your favourite of all time, who would it be?
The Undertaker is probably my favourite all-time wrestler. I think just from a young age, he captivates me with his whole sort of the image, the way he comes to the ring, the entrance, the reaction from the crowd, the fact he doesn't sell any moves. He did obviously later on, but in the early 90s, he didn't sell anything really. And just the mystique, so it has to be the Undertaker still, really, probably. But for a modern-day wrestler now, I'd say probably... I'd say Ricochet. I really, really like Ricochet now. I think Ricochet, he does the best he can with every sort of thing he's put into. And I just think if WWE got behind him, I don't want to put himself, but if WWE get behind him, this guy, there's no reason why he couldn't be challenging for the world title in a year's time.
Definitely, man. I don't understand why they're not really behind. Anytime I watch a Ricochet match, now I'm not a big fan of the guy. Anytime I watch it, I see myself sitting there just after it. I'm like, it's highly enjoyable. The guy's got character. He knows what to do in the ring, obviously. He makes the kind of flippy stuff look cool, which sometimes people do it and it looks terrible. But he makes it look really cool and it makes you like, that's really cool to do. But for me, favourite wrestler-wise has to be Sting. When I first seen him when I was a kid, I was like, this guy's a wrestler. Taker's probably a close second, and then Bret Hart would be up there as well. But it's so hard to pick like one guy from back then that you would be like, this is my favourite, because they're all great. Modern kind of day for me would I kind of go between a few. Would be like AJ Styles, but I think that's solid. More. I enjoyed him back in TNA. Like that kind of six-sided ring 2006, 2010 days. I think maybe that's still nostalgia because I forget how long ago that was.
Yeah, no, that was cool.
I would say Roman Reigns, but he would probably be my favourite today. He's just, everything he does is just good. His matches are getting better as they progress. His storytelling, speaking on the mic, it was insane. 2 years ago, people were like, this guy's terrible, you can't speak, whatever. They booed him out of the building for winning the Royal Rumble. So it's insane to see how far he's came.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting to hear sort of who you said. I think I just think it'll be really, really kind of fun. We're going into a really good period in wrestling in terms of WrestleMania season. So yeah, it's definitely going to be fun, that's for sure.
And what's your favourite event of all time? So like an event you could be like, this is my favourite. What's your one?
WrestleMania 17.
Yeah, everybody says that.
I've probably heard that a lot, to be fair.
I literally think that one's like the holy grail of wrestling cards. Like it was just a great show the whole time. And the final kind of question is, if you could go back and compete in any match at any point in history, what would it be? So for me, I would replace Owen Hart in the SummerSlam Blue Cage match with Bret Hart, because I think that would be amazing to have that experience. What would your one be?
Oh, that's a really, really tough question. I'm just trying to think of one that part of me would say, yeah, I'd love to be Mankind facing Undertaker in the Hell in a Cell at King of the Ring, but no, I'm not that stupid. So I think I'd love to go. I'd love to be sort of Hulk Hogan against The Rock at WrestleMania, because for me, looking at the crowd reaction, the heat, I think it was an end of an era to a certain point, and I think if I could be Hulk Hogan or The Rock in either way, I'd love to see that crowd ovation. Same with WrestleMania 17, where Austin The Rock, the crowd reaction, they only had 28 minutes, but for that 28 minutes, the audience and the whole world, the eyes are on them, if that makes sense.
Definitely. If I'm ever feeling sick or like run down, like unwell, I take a couple of days off work. That WrestleMania 17, 18 and 19, those are my three that I put on and almost sit and watch them, have like lem sips and stuff like that.
Yeah, good plan.
In bed with a blanket, and I'm like, this is great, because Hogan put on two great, or stole the show, pretty much 2 WrestleManias. The Rock done the same for 3, because he was like Austin and stuff like that. Those 3 are my kind of go-to watch for Manias, but back then it was just a different game. Obviously, they were allowed to get more with like Hogan being busted open, doing a leg drop off a ladder at WrestleMania 19. Yeah. You wouldn't get somebody that old doing that to this day.
It's just crazy. I think the thing with it's just a spectacle. It really takes wrestling back to its purest form, and it's just the way. I think having a crowd back, as I said earlier, I think that's going to be when we get to WrestleMania this year. I think it's going to make it that much more better, really.
Definitely, and something that I would love to see in the future is just WrestleMania going above WWE. So I know Vince won't let that go because that's his baby, but going above that and just having everybody in the world, like just have like a board and just have like AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan, just everybody come together and put on the best show for the fans. Because the amount of money that you would make from like this every year, you have like this one insane big wrestling show, and like the Super Bowl for wrestling, you would make an insane amount of cash off that.
It sounds like a dream. I wish it would happen. As long as Vince McMahon's not deciding who wins, I think, and it's not booked the same way as the Invasion. I think it'll be really, really good. That's for sure.
Yeah, and finishing up, where can people find you? I've got your links in the description below, but where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. On YouTube as Jonesy Chats Wrestling, and I'm just recently on Twitter. I'm still kind of new to Twitter, and I believe I'm on Twitter as Jonesy Chats as well. If anybody wants to chat wrestling, any old school wrestling or wrestling at all, really, I'm just interested to hear everyone's kind of opinion on the product, really.
Definitely, man. If nobody's checked you out, you should definitely go do it. Your shows are really good. It's one of the things that I was kind of not wanting to do the channel anymore. I was like, I need to get back to work and stuff like that. Then I caught your channel and I was like, you know what, I need to keep this going. It's fun to watch and it's fun to do. So if you wait there for 2 minutes, I'll end the podcast and I'll talk to you about after this.
No problem.